How's everybody doing? It's PR and I'm back at you with another face video. I know this is completely rare for me in certain situations. This video will not be about me talking about Doug Peterson getting fired. I already made like a 30-minute podcast about that. If you would like to listen to the podcast and you have some extra free time, I will put it in the description. Also, if you would like to see more updates, follow me, PR5210, for more updates for the Throwing Snowballs podcast. Okay, so the title of this video is obviously, Why Not Duce Staley? And I decided to come out and wear my number 22 jersey. This is not a Duce Staley jersey. This is an Asante Samuel jersey, but Duce Staley still wore a jersey in this style, just with his name on the back plate. But in honor of Duce, I'm just going to wear this jersey. And this is not going to be a reigning endorsement of Duce Staley. This is not a letter of recommendation for the Philadelphia Eagles to hire Duce Staley as their head coach. I'm not even 100% sure who I want to be the Philadelphia Eagles' next head coach. There are a lot of good candidates out there, but what people need to understand is, they're getting, huge into this process. They're starting to pick guys who they want. This whole process is a complete crapshoot. You could have the best candidate show up into your building, and you're like, this guy's going to do amazing stuff for us, and he might not do anything for you. The highest touted guy just does nothing, and then the guy who no one thinks is going to do anything goes and wins a Super Bowl like Doug Peterson. It's an absolute crapshoot, and I don't know what the methodology is, and one thing is for sure, I'm glad that none of these teams are listening to me on who they want to have their head coach be, especially because for the Eagles, the two candidates that I've wanted over the past two head coaching choices was Gus Bradley, who was crap, and Hugh Jackson, who was kangaroo crap. Absolutely one of the worst head coaching hires in NFL history. Only had like 3.5 wins in the history of his time, or maybe 4.5 wins in his history of his time being a head coach of the Cleveland Browns. But this is just going to be me asking the question, why not Duce Staley? Ever since Doug Peterson was let go, especially on Twitter and social media, it's very curious that I've seen more former players, current players coming out and dishing out huge praise for Duce Staley being the next head coach, and not as much for Doug Peterson. Now, I'm not going to come out and say it's because Peterson wasn't well liked. I'm sure that Peterson's players really did like him. But what I'm going to say is this. It's curious that a guy who has basically just been an assistant his whole career, he's never called the plays before, ever. He's never even been a coordinator. And there are a lot of guys coming out and they're saying, look, Duce Staley would make a great head coach. And it really got me to thinking, what about Duce? And obviously, when it comes to the pecking order, Duce Staley is probably the lowest of low when it comes to these candidates. And I can see where they're coming from. A lot of people, a lot of teams want a guy who can call the plays, who has called the plays before. They're looking for these flashy candidates. And you know what? If that's what they're looking for, that's what they're looking for. But if I was someone who didn't know who Duce Staley was, and in my personal opinion, if I look at Duce Staley's resume and the amount of prestige that he has and the amount of drive that he has to do better and the amount of respect that players give him, I'm looking at Duce Staley and I think to myself, well, why not him? He really does go ahead and check all the boxes for me. Okay? I want a head coach who isn't going to carry a play sheet. I want a coach who's going to go ahead and manage a game. I want a coach that's going to come in and create a culture that his players are going to buy into, and they are going to respect that person. Someone who's going to be tough on their players, but not too tough in the sense of they're just a complete dictator. So when I look at Duce Staley, he really does check all the boxes for me. And I look at Duce Staley when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy who was a running back from like 97 all the way to 2003 for the Eagles. So he really was with the Eagles for a little more than half a decade as a player. He played his whole career in the state of Pennsylvania. He retired in Pittsburgh in 2006. And then he became a quality control coach for the Eagles in 2010. And then the running backs coach in 2013 or 2014. And then in 2018, he became an assistant head coach. So if we're just plainly looking at that, I would just come out and say that in the NFL, Duce Staley has a better resume than Doug Peterson did. Duce Staley had a better NFL resume than Andy Reid did. Neither of these guys were ever assistant head coaches. They were either coordinators or position coaches. And I look at Duce Staley and I say to myself, this seems to be a guy who's not going to call the plays. This seems to be a guy who is going to be loyal to the organization because he's been loyal to this organization for this long. This organization has literally kept him down. I think the Eagles are the only team that's ever given him an interview to be a head coach. And this is the second time they've given him an interview to be a head coach. And from what Duce Staley means to this organization, it just seems like this team and this whole franchise should have given him more power than he actually has. And again, I'm not coming out and saying that Duce Staley would be the best head coaching candidate in the 2021 head coaching class. But what I'm saying is, I don't understand why these GMs are overlooking Duce Staley when even dudes who haven't played here in years are coming out and saying that Duce Staley would make a really good head coach. And he would make an even better head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now again, I'm sure these GMs would just be looking at Duce Staley to be a last resort if they wanted him to be some sort of stopgap coach. But it's really intriguing to me that he's held so much prestige, that he's held so much respect with the players, and he's not as much of a hot commodity as the other guys. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. This isn't a reigning endorsement for Duce Staley. This is just me asking the question, why not Duce Staley? It's PR. I have no idea what we're going to do here. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but I hope it turns out well. Peace. I'm out. Fly, Eagles, fly, and see ya.